It always warms my heart. They're just warming up those little voices, getting ready to go. But no matter whether we're in the chapel or the cathedral, we hear them.
Are Mike and Dickerson?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one of the stories. I think those are all in the St. James.
I see. Oh, the kid.
Yeah. I don't know.
It really shows their growth in the community.
Well, and then, as we all know, that's so important. The parents had a church up in Oregon, and they looked at it one day, and they all looked around at each other and said, you know, in a few years, we're gonna all be gone in the world.
Yeah, just for 2 weeks.
And they worked really hard in their small little community to rebuild their Sunday school, to build a new church so that young people would find, come and see what's happening. And it worked, and that church grew and blossomed from 0 Sunday school to a big Sunday school and a church my parents are both on. That is on. It's really nice. They did look around and said, this is great, we're doing wonderful, but where's the next generation?
But I got the emails this year too.
Because it doesn't matter what you do if there isn't the next
Yeah, so you
generation.
were on.
Hawks was here, and he said there were times where there was no kids for Sunday school at all.
That's the best part for me is seeing the rest of the
Well,
open.
part of
So
that
what I
is,
want to.
I know in our last
Not
church,
having to stand
we
in the
dealt with
line.
that, even though we had a huge preschool and
Some
everything.
places get busy.
Kids'
And
sports
you only have 2 days.
so
Yeah, 2 days.
That they
Saturdays.
demand
And they're not
these
just
kids to be at a
Saturdays.
Sunday,
Right.
and if they don't show up, they get cut.
Yeah.
And that's
Sometimes they also
the
give you
young,
free
like
passes
the
for their walking
ding
tours.
dongiest, I'll call it,
really
of
nice. I
sports,
really like the
we're not
walking
talking
tours.
travel
I
teams,
haven't
we're
done one in
talking,
a few years.
the kids with regular little soccer
I've
games.
never done
You don't
They're
show up, you're
like
gone.
cross country.
Those are good.
We just didn't go.
Right,
I guess we deviated from the
well,
sense.
yeah, but it's sad that families have to choose.
We're
Sorry.
taking a brief interruption in our regular programming but it's not completely off topic.
Okay.
Remember, we've been talking about a season of saints, and we've been exploring the lives of the people who made the church possible today, those who carried it along and made it so that it's here today for us. And part of this season is always with an eye toward now it's us. Now we're the generation that have to figure out how are we going to be the church in this world to carry it forward for the next generation, so that just as St. James has been here for 190 years, it'll be here for 290 years, right? Because of the work that we do here and now. And so, not an entire tangent, but we're going to be talking a little bit about this year's annual pledge drive, what to expect, and hopefully if we have some time, some frequently asked questions. And that is because, basically, it's because starting next Sunday is our kickoff. It's our launch for the annual pledge drive. And so we wanted to create a forum. We're going to record it here so that anybody who misses it is able to see it afterwards, where we're going to just tell people what you're going to be able to expect this pledge drive here. So, getting us started, you may remember last year, was anybody here for the forum last year when we talked about sustainable draw, pew rentals, capital campaign, stewardship, what do these things all mean? And we kind of spent some time defining these terms and detangling them somewhat. Is anybody here for that? A couple people, okay. So, it wasn't lost on us. I felt like we learned a lot, but we're hoping to continue on that trend. One of the big things we learned in this was essentially very important. What is the difference between a pledge drive and a capital campaign? And just hold this in your minds because this is going to be very relevant for all that we're doing. But basically, the pledge drive is it's your annual gift every year that supports the daily operating costs of the church, the utilities, the program budget, all of the things that make St. James year in, year out is supported by this pledge that comes in every year. The capital campaign is a single piece of time campaign that you donate to that supports a major capital expenditure like buying this building, putting a new roof on the cathedral, restoring St. Andrew's Chapel, one-time or occasional things that we raise funds for, but not part of the annual operating budget. So as we move forward talking about pledge drive, we're talking about this category. We'll talk about this category another time. We have a theme for this year. Some people may remember last year our theme was a season of gratitude, where we talked about how it's out of our gratitude for the gifts that God has given us that we dig deep and we find that this is how we give to support in thankfulness for the gifts that God has given us. This year, as fitting in with our season of saints, it's this theme that is very much focused on the people, like I said, who supported us in the past, who made St. James what it is today, and how now it's our turn. So this is our theme. Yay, season of saints! I'm going to reintroduce Marcy in just a second here. So essentially, what you need to know as we put this season of saints together, it starts with a stewardship committee, and that committee is a group of members of the church who come together to support the idea of faithful stewardship, of taking care of our resources and continuing to grow the mission of the church. Every year, that means we'll have an annual pledge drive to support that stewardship work. And every year, it means we pick a chair. Marcy, can I have you? I'll invite you to come on up here to read the items. You all know Marcy from our regular forums.
Hello, I'm Marcy Backus.
And you're our chair.
Yes,
for the
I
annual drive.
am your chair, and this week you will be getting an envelope that looks like this. Please open it. There's a lovely letter, painstaking letter that was written for you to read. You will get your stewardship materials. You'll be getting a pledge card, and I want to thank Lance, who designed our pledge card with the help of the committee, but did a great job. We have a wonderful pledge card for you. We have another little piece in there called a, what did I call that? Oh, sorry, stewardship possibilities. And we're looking at a couple things this year a little differently. I just want to mention that. We're not only asking you to look into the financial pledge that you make here, but your time and your talents. All of these things, all three of these things are important to St. James. Of course, we know that financial makes our budget. And that is something tangible that we can look at. We can write the numbers down and we can say, okay, as a cathedral, we can move forward this year because we have this budget. But time and talent is something that is important too. Lance giving his time and talent to creating our pledge card meant that we didn't have to go to an outside source and pay a design firm to design our card and come up with that. These things are important. My husband Craig, who's been a big part of getting St. Andrew's Chapel ready and the next things, giving his time has saved the church money. So look at it both ways. We all have time, we all have talents, and at different parts of our life, we have more of one or the other. Sometimes we have more money, less time, and sometimes in our life we have more time and less money. And so what we're asking you this year is to look at it as a whole and let us know what you have to give. So we thank you moving forward with the stewardship campaign. I'm very grateful to have been asked. I was called to Lisa's office. I thought the principal had called me in and I was in trouble, and I thought, what is she gonna ask me? And let me tell you, this was the last thing I thought she was gonna ask of me. But I decided to spread my spiritual wings and stretch them, and I'm asking you to do the same, so thank you.
And you don't do it alone.
No, I
Right?
have a
This is
whole
the
committee.
There's a
Yes.
whole dream of
Yes, there is definitely a committee that has lifted us up, supported us. Lance is part of that committee. There's several of us. As the campaign goes forward, feel free to ask us any questions, email, text, grab me.
Hint, hint, if you want to be involved.
Yes. If you want to be involved, you can always be involved. We ask for that. So as you're looking at your spiritual gifts, maybe stewardship is one of them. So
Thank you so much. And you'll be ready for any questions as they may come up. And
absolutely.
between the two of us, we might come up with an answer.
Maybe. Yes.
So just to give us kind of a crash course in how this has gone, Marcy, you're well familiar with this now. Spring of this year is when we really were taking the time to look at last year's pledge drive and to think about how we wanted to start doing things, how we wanted to start organizing a team of people. By the summer, we had selected our chairperson, and Marcy graciously said yes, and we celebrated, woo, and started forming a team of great people around you to do this work for this pledge drive year. I feel like pretty much all of August and September we were planning, figuring out what we were going to do, because the whole goal is next Sunday, October 13th, is launch day. That is when we officially begin the drive, with the goal of, by November 17th, about a 1 month span, we have our in-gathering, and that is the in-gathering of all of those pledges, where we're going to have a big celebration of all of the support that we are coming together as a community to offer. Questions so far through all of that? There'll be plenty of time for it as we want to dig into any individual part of it, but so just letting you know, here's what you can expect. Here's what will be coming up. This week, before October 13th, this week you should be getting that letter that Marcy is holding up in the mail. Don't be surprised when it arrives, because you know the pledge drive is starting. It'll have that card, it'll have the letter from our chair. As you said, it'll have those ministry possibilities, ways of thinking about being a steward of the community. So hang on to that letter, don't throw it away, hang on to that card. You don't necessarily need to fill it out right then and there. You might want to take part of the pledge drive season and think through as we do the Sundays coming up. How do I want to use this? How do I want to use this pledge card? So October 13th is the launch. It'll be on the dedication of St. James Church. It's our celebration every year of this community. And it seemed like a really fitting time to say, okay, it's time to start the pledge drive for the year. So those things aligned quite perfectly for us this year.
And don't forget that October 13th is also the marathon.
It is also the
So
marathon day, everyone.
plan accordingly to make sure you are here on time.
It's worth it to come. Get on the red line,
Absolutely.
get off
I
at the
want to
Chicago
make that
station.
clear. You're going to have to plan a little extra time, but we want you here.
You can always get here using the red line. It goes under the marathon,
Yeah.
so you can get here. Get off at the Chicago station, and we'll come together for Dedication Sunday. It's a battle between dedication versus marathon. Which one will it
We're
be?
running a marathon too, so.
So during the Sundays of this season, you're going to be seeing a couple of things. We're going to have a sermon series. So on the Sundays between October 13th and November 17th, in the sermons, we're going to be hearing a kind of a theme. And this theme is thinking about being stewards. What does that mean? Well, being stewards is a practice of discipleship. It's a practice of faithful discipleship. How are we stewards of our prayer life? How are we stewards of our minds, of our formation and education? How are we stewards in the way we reach out to the community? And of course, as Marcy, as you said, how are we being stewards of supporting the mission and ministry of our church with our time, talent, and treasure? So they're all going to be tied together on this idea of thinking about how do we practice stewardship as a form of our discipleship. In addition, you'll be hearing members of the church will be getting up at all of the services at 8, 9, and 11. There are still spots available. If anyone's thinking about being one of those people to get up and say, this is why I contribute to St. James. This is what this means to me. This is what it means to me to give. This is what it means to me for what I get from it or the difference that it makes. All of us are here for a reason. And we'd love, if you feel so inclined, to be one of those people at 8, 9, or 11 to get up and say, here's why I'm here. And I want to share that with you because I want to get you out there in the pews thinking about, why am I here? So we'll also have some written testimonies that'll come up in the e-news and be on the website. So it's going to be blasted all over the place. You're going to get Season of Saints, Season of Saints, Season of Saints. Our forums, we're going to have a couple of forums where we will turn into sort of the practicalities of, now how do I give, and what do my gifts go for, and can I direct my gifts to a specific ministry, and how can I be sure that they're used the way I want them to be used, and all those kinds of questions we'll start digging into. But for right now, we're very broadly thinking about giving in general. We'll dig into the specifics another time. As we continue, like I said, In-Gathering Sunday, yay! That's the day where we will be celebrating. It's not your last day to pledge. It's absolutely not your last day to pledge. You can pledge anytime. It is the last day, however. That's the day where we're going to take everybody's pledge cards and bring them together and carry them up to the altar as an outward and visible sign and celebrating, like, this is our gifts that we are coming together, God, that you made possible for us to bring as this community and present before you. This is us doing the mission and ministry of the church. So if you want to be a part of that outward and visible celebration, this is the day to have the cards in by you. Either mailed in and we'll put them in, or you can bring them on that day and put them in the basket. If you give online, we have we'll put a card in for your gifts online, so it still gets included.
Absolutely.
Everybody gets included. You can turn your pledge card in December, but then you don't get to be a part of the big yay celebration. So I encourage everybody, November 17th. We're a sacramental church. We believe in these outward and visible signs that express God moving in our lives. So this is a part of it. What to expect after November 17th. We won't be done. After the 17th, if you've pledged, you'll be getting a thank you note. You will be getting a hand-signed thank you note for contributing to be a part of this. If you have not given, you will still be being reached out to. And somebody say, hey, we know that you've given in the past. We know that you're a faithful member of this community. And we want to know about how we can help you think about how you can contribute. Maybe your card got lost. Maybe you thought your spouse turned in the pledge and he or she thought you did. That happens a lot, actually. In December, I call people. I thought my wife turned the pledge card in. I thought you did. And so we will be reaching out to folks just to make sure. It happens. I thought I gave online, but it didn't go through. So it's never with a sort of a shaming you didn't pledge. It's always with we see that you usually do. We know you here. We care about you here. We want to know how can we help. With the understanding that by December 31st, we're kind of closing our financial books for the year. And so the more of those pledges we get in, the more of a sense we have of what we will be doing as a community in the next year to come. Again, it's not the last chance, but it does give us the best sense of what we're looking at for the year to come. So it's important. And by December 26th, that'll be our annual meeting. God willing, unless there's a change, January 26th will be when we as a community come together, and one of the things we hope to be able to announce is the amazing success that our annual pledge drive has been this year. We'll talk about the number of pledges, the number of new pledges we've received, and financially how those will support the ministries of the church. And so if you want yours to be included in that annual meeting celebration, you have to have them in by then as well. So it's an ongoing, all year long, continuing to contribute. And Marcy, you're probably already like, oh my God. By spring of 2025, we're back to assessing the prior year's pledge and starting it all over again. Because this is work we constantly will do. The work of the church will continue. Pause for questions again. All good? Okay. All right, wonderful. Well, this is the questions. How can you help? Basically, we've dropped a couple of lines so far so that you know. This is first of all, you can help by pledging, obviously. But there's lots of ways you can help. You can help by being one of the people that gets up and says, this is why I give. This is what St. James means to me. You can be one of the people that helps us sign thank you notes. You can be one of the people that helps us reach out. Right now, the biggest thing you can do is you all are the ones here in this discussion right now. So the majority of St. James members, the hundreds and hundreds of St. James members that are not here right now you can be advocates for this and explain, oh, I was at the forum, I know what's happening, let me explain it to you. So that's a huge, huge way that you can help.
I think one of the main points too is I always think about this. I think about our own lives, and I think about if I had to make our budget, our annual budget at home, and not have a clue of what money was going to be there, I couldn't do it. And the church is no different. If you are a faithful person that puts X amount of dollars in the plate every Sunday, that is wonderful, but we need to know that you do that. That helps us with our planning and our budgeting. None of us could budget our lives with not having a clue what's gonna, I don't know what I'm just gonna take this mortgage, I don't know what my income is, but I'm gonna, we all need to know that, and I don't believe the cathedral is any different. So if you are in any way giving money, that's something that we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you, yeah. That's a huge help. So, if there aren't further questions on this, Lance, you and, well, the whole team, but especially Lance, I know you worked so hard on helping pull together the frequently asked questions part. And so, just for the purposes of everyone watching on the video, and for in case anybody here wants to raise up questions, this is our opportunity to just get some basics and address sort of those questions we hear every year about the pledge drive. So, first one, I feel like we've kind of covered a lot. What is a pledge, right? The pledge is this idea of saying, God has given me great gifts. Everything I have is a gift from God, and what am I faithfully saying I am going to give back? It's a promise, it's a commitment. It's not necessarily a legal contract. Don't worry, people aren't going to come for you if what you pledge doesn't end up being what you actually end up giving by the end of the year. But it's an outward and visible. We're sacramental people. It's an outward expression of, this is what I hope to be able to contribute back. This is what I hope to be able to give this year. And it's a way of, again, rather than just saying I'm going to drop in whatever I have at the moment in the offering plate, it's a mindset of saying I have a goal as a part of our goal, and here's how I plan to contribute to that.
Question?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but I've been a member of several churches, and I know a lot of churches don't use the term pledge, they use the word intended giving. It's what you intend to give, which is sort of a two-sided coin, because you intend to give something. If things in your life change for the worse, well, then obviously you have to give less.
Yeah.
But if things increase in your life, then you can even increase what your intended giving was.
Absolutely.
So I sort of like that term, intended giving.
And I think this it gets at intention. I think thank you, I appreciate that. We are trying to get at intention, and it's holding it in balance with, but it's holding it in balance with sort of covenantal language in a sense of, remember when God came to Abraham and said, Abraham, let me be your God. I want to be your God. I want you to be my people. I want you to love God and love your neighbors as yourself. And we know that Abraham wasn't always going to get it right. Like sometimes Abraham was going to get it right and be as loving as he was called to be. Sometimes he wasn't. But it was about a relationship to say, God, I'm promising to you that I'm going to try. Or like a baptismal covenant where we say we promise to seek and serve all people, loving our neighbors as ourselves. We don't always do it as well as we should. Sometimes we probably go over the top and do more than we need to be doing, right? But it's about expressing an intent, like you said, an intention. And it's more than just, that's what I hope to do. There is meant to be a certain almost covenantal kind of language to it. What is my pledge used for? I feel like we probably covered that some, right? The pledge goes to support the daily operating costs of the church. It's what keeps the mission and ministry of St. James Community going. Our hospitality, our outreach, our feeding ministries, our Sunday schools, our beautiful worship, all the things that come in, day out. That's what the pledge supports. A lot of people think, this is the thing, a lot of people think that the cathedral is funded by the Diocese of Chicago. It's not. I have people think that the cathedral is funded by the city of Chicago to support having a cathedral in the city. It's absolutely not. We receive no outside public funding from the city of Chicago or the national government. It's not like Church of England. We are not a national church or state religion. We don't receive any outside funding that goes to that we don't tax all of the parishes of the diocese to support having a cathedral. The cathedral is supported by us, the pledging members of this community, to make it possible. And in fact, much more of our support goes outward broadly beyond our walls than actually comes in from the outside. Just settling that rumor right now. We get no government money. Do I need to make a pledge? This is a big one. I have people come to me and say, St. James has been here 190 years. It's been running just fine without me. Clearly you don't need my pledge because you're doing fine. I've got my pitch for you. A couple of reasons. One is that yes, St. James has been going as a community for 190 years without your pledge. But that was because of the generous people who came before you who believed in the mission and supported it so that it can be here today for us. Our job is now to be the people who are supporting it today for the generations to come. So I would say in that regard, yes, we have gone just fine without your pledge, but to keep going, we do absolutely need your pledge to continue that mission and ministry. And year in, year out, we are constantly in a process of getting new pledges in from people who are moving here, going old pledges out from people who are moving away, dying, retiring, being an income they can't pledge like they used to be able to pledge, new people coming in and saying, I'm now joining a church for the first time. It's a constant process of, we haven't had one pledging member for 190 years. It's a constant revolving pledge. So yeah, that's why we do need your pledge. And to be honest, the mission and ministries of St. James, we spend more in our operating budget. If you've been to the annual meetings, we spend more in the operating budget than we are currently bringing in pledges. And so if you want to be able to make sure that what we're doing we can continue to sustain and continue to do, it'll take bringing in more pledges than we've been bringing in. So yeah, absolutely. Yes. The answer is a resounding yes. Do you need to make a pledge? Yes, you do.
How about people that think that, oh, well, you're buying the building, so you're financially healthy. You should be fine. What about that?
Sure.
What about that point?
That's a great question, and while it would take us too long to dig into all of the nuts and bolts of the purchase of this building and everything right now, just to say, we're not buying this building because of the extra funds we have lying around, right? That's why we have this capital campaign to run funds specifically for that, because we don't just have that, but we believe in the mission of what we need, what we're called to do, and so we're raising funds from that, while at the same time we still need to be a church day in and day out. So both of those things are happening at the same time. But thank you, yes, because it could very well seem like, they're buying a building. They clearly don't need money. Yes. Buildings are expensive. And we're working on both simultaneously. It's going to take a lot of help. Does the cathedral need my pledge? Oh, I feel like I jumped that one already. Yes, the cathedral does need your pledge for all of the before mentioned reasons. How do I figure out how much to pledge? I get this question probably as much as any. People come to me and say, how am I supposed to know? We're not like some faith traditions. There are faith traditions out there that every year you bring your tax return, your 1040, and they look at your adjusted gross income and they say, okay, here's 10% of that, here's your pledge. We don't do that. Okay? I see some of you already kind of like shrinking in your seats when I say bring in your 1040 and we'll look at it. We don't do that here. It's very much a personal choice. It's very much a process of you looking inward and saying, I know what I have as a gift from God. I want to have a faithful expression of thanksgiving. This is what I think will do that. This is what this community means to me, and this is how I want to make sure it continues to happen. These are my life circumstances. I've got children to feed, or I'm on a fixed income, or I know I'm about to get a promotion, or I may move away in a couple of years. No one's going to know what works, what's the right pledge amount. Nobody else is going to be able to tell you exactly what that is. I am always happy to be in conversation with anyone who wants to sit down and try to figure it out individually. But ultimately, it's going to be a very personal choice between you and God about this is what feels right to me. Yeah, Laura.
A few years ago, we altered the pledge card so that they actually put down some suggested percentages of income. And I think that was really helpful for a lot of people. Will we be doing that this year?
Yes.
You're gonna get it in the stewardship possibilities that's gonna come with your pledge card this year. So for those that do love numbers and do need to see and kind of get a feel for what my income is, what a percentage of that looks like, we have definitely included it in this will be in the letter. So for those video people, there you go. But yes.
Yeah, it'll be in there, yes. Yes.
Do we not, I wish I was there, but do we not strive in our spiritual life to look for the biblical giving of 10%?
Yes, that's exactly where you're reading my mind, exactly. There is a long-standing tradition that goes back to the idea of a tithe, which is the idea of taking 10%, actually started at least 10% as the floor of this, not a goal, but a base of saying 10% of what I receive as gifts from God, I should be contributing back to the greater good. That's a long-standing tradition. But like I said, we are not looking at your books and saying this is what 10% is. And you may have a sense of, when people come to me and they say, well, do you mean 10% before tax or after tax? Right? That's showing me a level of minutia about it that you're thinking maybe too much about being legalistic about it, and instead think more in terms of this is a faithful portion of saying I'm going to take what I give and give it back, and 10% is a good guide.
I have another question related, which I've never known the answer to, sort of like that, what, 10%? Do you give 10% to the church, or like 10%, do I give 5% to the church and 5% to the Cancer Foundation?
You should be up here leading this. Because yeah, there is a sense from a lot of people that say, a couple generations ago, when I wanted to feed the hungry, I gave to the church, and the church fed the hungry. If I wanted to take care of the homeless and the poor, I gave to the church, and the church took care of the homeless and the poor. There are a lot more, in 2024, there are a lot more opportunities now for direct giving. Like, I can directly give to March of Dimes. I can directly give to Habitat for Humanity. So in that sense, a lot of people, and I see the argument for this, a lot of people say, I want to give back faithfully 10%, but some of that's going to be to Habitat for Humanity, some of that's going to be to St. James, but ultimately it's going to work out to be a portion of, because I believe when you're giving to Habitat for Humanity, that is you still faithfully tithing back to God from the gifts you've been given. I don't want it all to make it seem like you should automatically deduct any other gifts. It shouldn't be like a deduction from your pledge to St. James necessarily. But I get it that you're also giving in lots of different areas as well, and that should be a factor in deciding what can I do.
Can I add to that really quickly, though?
Yeah.
That was something that came up in our stewardship committee group, and you'll notice this year that your card is going to look a lot different. And we've actually added a place alongside our giving and service at the cathedral / we volunteer with our financial support to the following organizations.
Okay.
We're not asking you what you're giving to the other organizations, but we want to honor that people are out there with the hand of God reaching out from our cathedral walls and doing good in the world. And we understand that, and we just want to honor that. We're not asking how much and what you're doing, but yes, it's a very important thing that we are all doing work outside the walls as well, and we wanted to honor that.
Like
So.
if you're going out and you're helping after school kids with their homework as an expression of that's absolutely part of your extension of the St. James community, or giving blood, or building a house for Habitat for Humanity. That's why we want to see that too, is because that's all expressions of what we as St. James as a community are doing. Craig, did you still have?
I was just going to say, as Marcy said before, the value of your time is important.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that as well, not just the actual amount you're writing the check for.
We would love to be able, we won't put dollar amounts on it or anything, of course, but we would love to be able to, at the annual meeting, to say, here's what's going to St. James in pledges, but also here's all of the other impacts we're making at the Red Cross, the United Way. Here's all of the other ways in which we are contributing way beyond our reach within our four walls. And so I think that's a great way of thinking about our stewardship, for sure. Did I see another, was it Lance? Did you have anything? No, you didn't? What happens if my circumstances change? We kind of talked about that already. We live in the real world. People are going to lose jobs. People are going to get promotions. People are going to have kids, and suddenly I don't have what I had before. People's kids are going to leave the home, and you're saying, now I don't have to spend money on all those kids anymore. That's not how that works. But I get, like, people will say, I might move in a year. Right? My circumstances may change. And the big worry is, if I turn in a pledge and I don't know what the future holds, what does that mean? And as I said before, I promise, like, We're never sending a collections agency after you. No one's ever gonna call and say, hey, where's our money? And that's not what it's about. I mean, we understand that, now one thing that's helpful is when circumstances change to be able to say, hey, my circumstances have changed. I actually wanna give more than I promised in my pledge. Or, hey, this has changed. I'm not gonna be able to give what I thought at the beginning of the year I was going to be able to. And you'll never get any pushback. We all know this. We're a growing community of people that's moving and changing, and so I would much rather somebody pledge with their best guess and understand that it's flexible and it changes. I would much rather somebody pledge knowing that that will change than to say, I don't know what the future will hold, so I won't pledge at all. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I promise, you're never get an angry phone call from me.
No Guido and a collar.
No Guido, the biggest ball bad, like we didn't make her pledge. No, no.
Guido in a collar.
Guido in a collar. How do I pay my pledge? Well, for starters, let me just jump in real quick and say, Laura, you mentioned the percentages. Actually, I will just tell you from my standpoint, whenever I get a pledge in and it's like exactly $100 a month, not that I don't appreciate the giving, but somebody that just auto deducts $100 a month it's kind of showing me not the same amount of thought went into looking at my circumstances and thinking through, here's where I am, here's what I can give, here's a percentage, right? If you're getting a percentage, it's always gonna be like $83.79 a month. Then we know somebody's really thinking a lot about, here's where my capacity is. And it's a little bit less of a subscription mentality of like, this is like my $8 a month for Netflix, right? Or what is it, whatever it is these days, it's probably like $50 a month for Netflix these days. But it is okay to always auto deduct it. It can auto deduct from your bank. There's something that's actually really nice about the mindfulness of taking a pledge and once a month, this is very old school, but once a month dropping it in an envelope and putting it in the offering plate, or putting it in the mail and sending it. There's an intentionality behind that. There's a mindfulness that's not quite the same as, oh, I set this to auto deduct 8 years ago and it's just going and I never even think about it from year to year, you know? So it's always okay, you can pledge online, you can, if you're gonna just put a check or cash in the offering plate on Sunday mornings, just make sure you mark somehow that it's your pledge so that we know it's contributing to that. But I'm always happy to, if there is a way you want to pledge and there's a way you want to fulfill your pledge, I will find a way to make it happen.
Well, yeah, reach out and this is for video purposes also for people listening. If you don't know how to automatic deduct, if you don't know how to set those things up, if you need assistance, we are more than happy to help people
we have
figure that piece out. Don't not do it because you don't know how.
We have people that will say, I never pledged because I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And so we will help with that.
Yes.
If you're interested and want to know how, we will help with that. How often should I pay my pledge? You know, again, it's going to be a personal choice, what works for you, what works for your circumstances. We do have people that they wait until December 31st and they pay the whole pledge on December 31st for tax purposes so that they get it in by the year. That's fine. Thank you. It's wonderful generosity. Thank you for doing that. We run the church 365 days a year though, so I would just say my own preference is if we're getting it in monthly installments, it just helps us monthly for continuing ongoing expenses of being the church all year long. Ultimately, it's going to be what works for you and what makes sense for you. I'd say our personal preference is probably monthly installments. Just makes it a lot easier for the work that we're doing here month in and month out. Will I be asked to give to the pledge drive and the capital campaign? Short answer is yes. Yes. Done. Remember the earlier slide where we talked about pledge drive and capital campaign and how those are going to two different things. We are trying to boldly, in the capital campaign, boldly envision what we can do for the future ministries of this church with our building, with restoring our historic church, and there's going to be fundraising to make that work possible in a one-time capital campaign. So yes, we would absolutely love for you to contribute to that. Even at the same time, day in, day out, we're also running the missions and ministries of our community. So, probably that's not the 11 o'clock bell.
No,
It's
the
10:45
quarter
now. So yes, I mean, the short version is, we are asking people to, you will get 2 asks, and not to make it seem like, well, I just gave, why are you asking me to give again? I think that's the thing we're worried about, is saying, well, I just gave to the pledge drive, why are you asking me to give again? And we hope over the course of this season to make clear that it's really because we're talking about 2 very different things, both very important things, but different things. And so that's very much why we're not calling it a pledge campaign. We're calling it a pledge drive and a capital campaign to try to, as clearly as possible, highlight these are 2 separate things. Because you're going to be hearing about the capital campaign as well, more once we get past pledge drive season. That brings me pretty much to the end of our crash course in how we're going to do this, how we're going to be the saints today, people. So let me know, any other questions? It's been great questions so far.
Sorry, I have so many questions.
No, this is great. You're the brave person lifting up what everybody else is probably thinking and not saying.
I mean, isn't really giving more about what you're doing for yourself than for the church? Isn't that, I mean, your spiritual life I mean, I know you said last year was gratitude, but isn't that, it's really more about you and not giving to a budget or anything, but just giving thankfully, and which is the second part of my question, which you don't have to answer. I don't want to put you on the spot, so I understand that. Does clergy know what people are giving? Because I've heard some clergy don't want to know, and others look at it sort of in a pastoral to see where their spiritual life is. And once again, you don't have to give your answer.
No, I'm all about transparency. I mean, aside from what people are confessing to me, obviously. But no, those are great questions, because those are very much on people's minds. I am very much in the sense of the grander sense of stewardship really should be about your personal discipleship. And everything I have been given is a great gift from God. And in my gratitude, here's how I want to contribute back to creation. And for some people, that's going and planting seeds in a forest to help combat deforestation. For some people, it's being a part of an organized religious faith community to do the works we can do together that we would never be able to do individually, right? So each of us is going to have our own personal sense of this is about me and my relationship with God. And I don't mean to detract from that at all. The very clinical sort of like pledge drive. It's this very clinical sense of what we're trying to do, though, is figure out how we can best take it from the individual and make it the corporate. Corporate's probably a bad word, it makes it sound business, but I mean in the sense of us coming together as a body of people saying, we believe we can do more together than each of us could do apart. We believe that community is an important part of this, and so my pledging is very much individual to my giving in my relationship with God. But we as a community are working to come together and figure out how we can pledge all together to do the work of God, to do the work that we believe God has called us to do. And so that means there comes a kind of a little practical side of that comes from just trying to organize people doing this together. To that end, to your question, yes, it depends on from church to church. I know some clergy people absolutely, some churches do not want their clergy people to know what they're giving. Here, yes, I technically am able to go and see what anybody is giving. I'll say I most of the time don't have any reason to look because I don't care, right? People are giving. I care that you are giving what faithfully makes sense to you. The dollar amount is not ultimately important to me, so I don't look it up before I go and visit and see, is this person worth my time, right? I think that's the fear sometimes, is, if you know my giving, is it going to affect how I can relate to you as a clergy person? And I will say, so for that, I can look, and mostly that's for the practical work of trying to figure out how many people can we feed this year? And are we financially going to get the support? And if I know a major donor that made it possible for us to give to feed LYE or to add a new library to the school, and I know that person is moving away, me having a sense of that person's giving will help me know how we can do the ministries of the church. And so it's important to be able to know when I need to, but also most of the time, day to day. And I don't keep it in my head, honestly, I'm forgetful enough about it that if at one point I looked up the dollar amount that you give, I promise I don't remember what it was.
Can I add to that a little bit?
Yeah.
So in the stewardship committee, it's a big balance. How do we keep it spiritual versus we need money?
Right, yeah.
Like, it's a delicate balance, and it's something that we discuss ad nauseum at times, what to do and how to do it. And I think when you get the pledge card this year, you'll see that we tried to find a balance with that. It's not just about money, but it's about your spiritual gifts, times, and talents. And we've tried to balance that out, but also, if the congregation doesn't, we need to have a goal. And so that goal is out there, and it'll be in your letter. And trying to balance that is not easy, but we tried to do our very best, and I hope you see that in the campaign this year.
We don't look at the budget and then divide it by the number of members and see
Right,
what
no.
a fair share is.
No,
No.
Right,
no,
right,
absolutely
yes.
not. But there is a budget, and that has to be addressed, and there is the spiritual side, and we've tried this year as best we could as a committee to marry the two.
Church is an interesting thing. It's like we are a faith community, not a business, but honestly, but also still kind of have to operate as a business, right? And we believe that we are in a relationship with God, but yet also there's an electricity bill that still needs to be paid, and it's a very weird line to walk, and we try to do it faithfully, and we do it with the help of the people of our community. I'm so appreciative of not just the help of our committee, not just the help of our chair, of course, but year in, year out, the faithful response of the people of St. James saying, we had 190 years of people who came before us. Through time and time again, from the time the church burned down in 1871 and they made the faithful decision to say, we're going to spend to rebuild it again. To the opportunities that St. James had to become the cathedral of the diocese. Even though we knew there'd be an expense to that, we said, this is important. This community needs a cathedral, and we want to be a part of making that happen. To the pandemic, where we had the opportunity to just walk away and say, you know what, we don't need this, we're done. But we came back and we said, no, this is important. So year in, year out, a faithful community of people coming together and saying, this is how we want to be saints in this time, in our city, with the people around us. And then it comes to us in 2024, so that then the people of 2025, hopefully it'll all still be us, but then the people of 25, and the people of 2035, and the people of 2135 will be continuing to have this discussion of how are these saints of 2024 making it possible for us to continue to do the mission and ministry that we're doing today. So, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. We head up to the 11 o'clock stairs. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks.
Please make sure you thank Marcy for all the work she's doing. Again, every committee member has received.
Our committee is we're working hard.
It's only 10:53. This is record. Everybody else will tell you. I'm normally running out of here at 10:57.
Great job, thank you.
To the very last minute, running out the door saying, oh, you have one more thing as I'm running out.
That's true,
As
right?
well as anybody, so I hope,
We did it at St.
the,
John's.
Do you want to turn off your phone?
I was
I
talking
know
to,
your beautiful, lovely daughter. Everybody loves more than they can say, yes.
oh, my phone.
I'll get it. Okay, you got it. Yeah, we'll just leave it in here, video. Yes, you will.